I just picked my olives. Where should I take them? Which olive mill? How do I choose the best one? Today we'll talk about it, and I'll give you a guide to help you choose the best olive mill in your area. Hello farmers, hope you're all well. As you know, my farm manages about 2 hectares of olive grove, and I work together with Marco Penitenti, who manages 100 on Lake Garda, my olive groves. Today I asked him for a brief discussion to create a small handbook and understand how to choose the olive mill. Look, the olive mill is something fundamental in oil production. In fact, you can start with a good olive and end up making a really mediocre oil. The difference is made at the olive mill, so let's understand how to choose our mill. We shouldn't neglect our olive grove, but starting with excellent olives also requires an excellent mill for top quality. We've harvested our olives. We should have anticipated the mill issue earlier, since you need to book in advance, but how do I choose a good mill? What qualities should it have? Because the difference between a good oil and a bad one, if in the vineyard it's mostly about the field, with oil, the mill really makes a huge difference as a result.
No, it makes a huge difference, especially if we bring or deliver healthy olives to the mill, free from pests and so on. So that's fundamental because it's the heart of the process. Keep in mind that once it's processed in the mill, the oil that comes out is already usable. We don't need to do anything else to it except filter it.
Okay, then I would take a step back. Maybe everyone knows this, but I would start for a moment. From the oil's defects, let's consider who can guarantee us quality.
Of course, well, the main defects of oil are heating, rancid, winey, wormy, and then fly and sludge. These are the 5 main defects.
Let's keep it simple, okay? We know about heat. That's why we use bottles that aren't transparent.
Let's start from the fact that our olives are perfect, so we already eliminate at the source any possible defects in the raw material. We deliver perfect olives to the mill.
Perfect like this one.
What problems could arise during processing?
Okay.
Olives left in the oil mill yard for 2 to 4 days.
In the sun.
In the sun, and that's where the abnormal fermentations start, because obviously we pick them with the harvesters and maybe they stay in a 280 kilo bin. As temperature rises, fermentation and oxidation increase, causing the oil to have higher acidity and more peroxides.
So here we solve it with a reservation.
Here we solve it.
And by being there, seeing on site,
booking and being there and relying on a mill that is organized so it has the capacity to process the quintals of olives.
Okay, and we have that.
Processing phase. Temperature is crucial.
Okay.
The ideal temperature is between 21 and 26 degrees.
You're talking about processing temperatures, so
processing temperatures of
right.
Extraction, which means the whole phase from malaxation up to the oil extraction phase.
So basically we get a paste, right?
Yes, the paste is created.
The pit is removed and the paste is used.
So if the pit is removed, we produce a pitted oil. Actually, the paste also includes the pit.
Okay.
Everything. So let's say in 99% of cases, because pitted oil is still a niche, what we extract is the whole paste, including the pit. And this paste must remain at about 21, 22, 26 degrees during processing.
Classic cold extraction, as it's commonly called.
It's the classic cold extraction, as it's commonly called, and that's exactly the case. If we raise the temperature a lot, even above 35 or 38 degrees, and in the past it was even done at 40 or 45 degrees, because by increasing the temperature, you extract all the possible oil from the paste.
Okay, but if I have to pick a mill, how do I know it stays at 21 degrees?
So definitely the very latest generation mills, those from 5, 6, 7 years ago, all have temperature controls anyway. Because they have coils inside the processing machines, they can even work in a protected atmosphere. So those are definitely better. We abandon the old plants with the millstones, with the presses, the mats.
So anyway,
like something for a museum.
Very, very simple. If I want to know if it's a good olive mill because it works at a controlled temperature, should I ask what kind of machine they have? Right?
Yes, exactly.
If I see that it still has millstones, those are low quality, right?
Yes, because the millstone, by crushing the paste, creates oxidation.
It heats up and causes oxidation, meaning there's contact.
We have to avoid contact between oxygen and either the paste or the oil.
Okay, let's go here too. I mean, because then we have to leave it. Name 2 brands. If you see these brands at the mill, the model might vary in size or other features, but they're a sign of certainty.
Let's say that the ones I have in mind also make meals of medium and small sizes, so they are suitable for a farm, and they are Mori Moritem and Piralis.
So if we look around, while we're going around and making reservations, we keep an eye out. We see these two brands and no millstones. So we know it's a good oil mill that preserves the product well.
Even though, I repeat, today technology is reaching high levels. Because, in any case, the idea of producing quality oil through a quality oil mill has entered the common imagination.
Okay, just a small clarification. It doesn't mean that the other brands don't work well. It just means that these two Italian brands are still considered a guarantee in the industry. And let me clarify that this video is not sponsored by either of them. However, the oil mills are continuous cycle, right?
Yes, exactly.
You just told me. Okay, I bring these bins, I bring mine. Usually I do about 4 or 5 bins, I bring them there. If they're on a continuous cycle, how do I know that I'm only milling my own oil?
Size of the mill.
Okay.
The mill's final part, the heart, is the decanter, a centrifuge that extracts oil.
Okay.
Larger decanters, like those processing 10, 15, 20, or 30 quintals per hour, handle 30 quintals of olives each hour. Plus, the whole initial part of the oil mill is large to handle that amount.
Okay.
So, if I have a small amount of olives and I want my own oil, I still generally have to choose smaller oil mills.
To put it simply, since it's a continuous cycle and they don't stop and clean out the machines, the oil, let's say from the previous milling,
it remains in the decanter.
The beginning of the oil we make will be part of someone else's oil. And let's say the tail end of our oil will be left as an inheritance. This can be fine. We can limit it. We should be more careful when I've worked really hard. I've brought olives that are so beautiful, while the person before me just brought some olives.
Exactly.
Which maybe weren't treated the same way.
When olives were picked by hand, this issue was even more evident since daily harvests were limited. With olive shakers, a small team can harvest large amounts. 4 people can gather 8 to 10 quintals of olives. And that's the best thing. Form a small harvesting group to collect a large amount, and almost always, that's your oil.
That's the strategy I'm using with him. Then I'll say that I'm teaming up with him. It's funny because, of course, Marco has huge amounts. Marco is so big, he basically takes over the entire mill for a month just to press his olives. I tag along with Marco when he goes to press, and then he gives me the oil that's been pressed. Look, this is one of the issues, in my opinion, that we need to be aware of even when making our choices.
Especially if someone is certified organic or produces organic oil.
Okay, because in that case, could I lose the certification?
That's essential since the mill must guarantee the machines are cleaned.
So could it have 2 lines or the washing?
Or 2 lines, or usually. The oil mill, which handles organic olives, processes them in the early morning after washing in the evening.
So it's even harder to book now.
You must ensure this, as contamination can easily leave you without any product.
So let's talk about cash. Now, Italy is long and wide, and there are different costs. If we can still give an indicative range, in your opinion, of how much one could ask for, and what affects the price? I've noticed oil mill prices rising a lot in recent years, but I understand their situation. Maybe you can give us an introduction about this too?
The price is rising significantly. Here on Lake Garda, we're averaging 25 to 26 euros per quintal, sometimes even 30, which is a big price increase. When I harvested 15 years ago, even in 2008-2010, we were at 16 or 17 euros, which was much more affordable. Consider that I also produce 1,000 quintals of olives, it starts to become a significant amount. Central and southern Italy, the prices are slightly lower, they are lower. Also because we're talking about machines of considerable size anyway.
So the fact that it's smaller in northern Italy.
Yes, they absorb much more of the processing. I mean, it's easy to find machines that can process even 100 quintals of olives per hour.
It can be strategic to bring the olives maybe at the beginning of the season, so maybe bring them more towards the first 15 days of October rather than in mid-November.
To increase yield when everyone brings them in, possibly creating a bottleneck.
You hit the nail on the head when you said everyone brings them in at the same time. One strategy is to slightly move up the harvest. Harvest when the mills aren't clogged, because the peak period is from October 25th to November 10th. They all harvest them.
especially during the holiday weekend, since everyone is home?
On holiday weekends, everyone stays home, so there are no workers, and the oil mills get clogged since everyone shows up. So maybe it's better to do it earlier, not later. It's better to do it earlier.
To be fair to the oil mills, energy costs have risen significantly, especially for many of them. They've really raised the quality. Above all, we've felt the impact in northern Italy from years of poor harvests with little collected. So there was a much slower amortization of investments, let's say. And so,
moreover, what works against them is the fact that the harvest, a bit like what's happening with the grape harvest, has become much more limited due to quality concerns. Looking back at the early 2000 SE, we used to harvest from mid-October through December 10th near St. Lucia. Now it's only October to early November.
we finished it by St. Martin's Day.
Game over, of course, we're happy about it. But now an oil mill has to process all the olives in 1 month, when 10 years ago it used to take 2 months.
A smart tip, because the strategy I used in the first years was to take advantage of Marco's kindness. Some oil mills operate around the clock. In my opinion, the most strategic times to bring your olives are between 2 and 3 in the morning, because usually no one goes there at that time. Anyway, we finish harvesting around 6 or 7. The temperatures are nice and low. You can go home, eat something, take a shower, and go to the mill even around midnight. It's true, you stay up late because you don't get home until 5. But since those were the best time, some people, just to get customers, will lower the price. They're even willing to give you a little discount.
And energy costs less at that time?
You manage, of course. You spend the whole night. But I think it's a strategy.
I have to say, it's also a nice experience.
It's a nice experience. It's a nice experience.
Overall, staying overnight at the oil mill is a nice experience. Even in this case, you're absolutely right. Because delivering at 6 in the evening, 5:30, 7 in the evening during a year of heavy production at the mill means you're basically committing suicide.
Exactly.
So you end up waiting in line for hours and hours.
So today we made a guide on how to present yourself and how to choose an olive mill. Of course, these are just guidelines, some tips so you don't show up unprepared. We still have time. Visit different olive mills, observe them, and ask questions. That's what I mentioned earlier. A video about the handbook has come out. To be ready for the harvest, what do you need, which machines to choose, what tools are required, how to use them. Another video has come out to help you understand when the olive is ripe. So when is the right time to harvest it? So I would say that we've been pretty clear for today. Maybe we went on a bit in some parts, but it was important to set certain boundaries. See you in the next video. Bye, everyone.
Bye.